Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Ha, Rekha Kodash, Ma'amah. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone and the elders. Double honors to my elder as well, Ahar Ben Yasha Allah of the Lions Den Camp. And salutations to the fellow Akim, Outwafim and children that believe in truth and in sincerity. It's your brother Adon Yallah back to another lesson in Yahweh Tazah is edifying. And I just wanted to touch the Mark of the Beast semantics topic. All right, as you have these other wayward camps, they play semantics pertaining to the Motb, which is a clear, and it should be a clear and simple breakdown compared to other breakdowns, you know, especially WFI. All right, that group, Adam Abbott. All right, the spirit has the spotlight on them because they butcher the scriptures. But at the same time, they can go into Revelation 17. They can go into other breakdowns and break it down properly. But when it comes to when it comes to one of the most important prophecies being the mandate of the Motb, they stumble. All right, they omit it. You know, an omission is a form of a lie. All right, abstaining from telling the people the truth is just the same as telling a lie. But the first scripture I want to go into is the book of 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 1. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy. And that's what you see out here today. You know, disobedient to parents, the spiritual fathers. All right, unthankful for the truth, the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And being that, hey, that shows when you don't acknowledge the ones who you come up under. All right, there's an order in this thing according to who got the water first. So when you build yourself up with the wisdom and knowledge and understanding and don't acknowledge, you know, hey, first and foremost, Yahweh Shai, all right, the names of the Lord, you know, which a lot of these wayward camps have a problem with. You know, and you don't acknowledge the Lord's setup being his men, all right, and how you was able to call yourself and surname yourself Israel today. You know, it has to be men before you with works, right? You know, again, it's just the disobedient to parents, you know, lovers of them old selves, you know, boasters, being proud. And that's what you see in that leader of that congregation of WFI. And that's why when it comes to an important prophecy or important breakdown, they're stumbling at it. All right, they're straining out a net. And in 2 Timothy 3 and 3, without natural affection, truth breakers, false accusers, right, the grape doctrine, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, right? They despise of those who are good. You know, you would think that the Motb and that breakdown is something simple, which it is compared to, you know, other breakdowns and chapters in the scriptures. You know, if you can break down Revelation 17 and, you know, so on and so forth, you should be able to see the Motb being the chip, all right, the device, the size of the grain of rice, as that's what's being innovated out here today throughout the four corners of the earth, as well as even smaller than that now, as they going into the term nano, all right, and even they're even speaking about it being put in our foods, all right, as far as the Mr. NA, all right, it's the abbreviation mRNA, all right, but verse 4, traitors, heady, high-minded, right? Traitors, heady, high-minded, you know, they be traitors, you know, they jump from one group to the next group, you know, which I believe High Priest Sabak was a part of HODC, but he was kind of doing his own thing. But then, you know, they met with the apostles of GMS, you know, being Adam Abbott, all right, the WFI Israelites, the Wi-Fi Israelites, you know, so again, they're traitors, you know, they're tossed to and fro from every wind of doctrine, You know, their eye is not single. They're you can tell that there was picking and choosing who they wanted to fall up under, and they were picking and choosing not according to the spirit. All right, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof, from such turn away. Right, that's denying the power of right there. You know, denying the Lord's setup. You know, who's the oldest man in this thing? Okay, dang, okay, that person come from under here. Okay, then you line it up. You know, so hey, they have a form of godliness, right? They have those sinews upon them, like it's spoken of in Ezekiel 37, but the breath is not in them. For of this sort, verse 6, are they which crept into houses and lead captive silly women, laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts, right? You know, and that's what they subvert whole houses that way, you know, and they bring on silly women, even though the women referring to what the nation of Israel, you know, even in a simple sense of actual women, these wayward camps even had their congregation out on the highways and byways years back, to where they had their women out there on the highways and byways with them as well. Was showing you that they was learning on the fly. They didn't really have the proper order and instruction and understanding of how to go about this thing. You know, they have their women out there with hats on and head wraps, you know, sitting in their little seats while they're out there teaching the people, while they're at war. Which that was, you know, I don't think too much of those camps do that today, like Priest Sabak and the Adam Abbots. I don't think they do that today. But verse 7, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth, right? Ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. You know, yeah, you might study and know some things, but you'll never come to the knowledge of the truth. Why? Because you haven't entered in at that straight gate. You know, and then what they play semantics and mental gymnastics when it comes to a breakdown or the doctrine, when they get put on the spotlight for things that they've been taught because they don't know it. You know, they're ultimately novices. This is the book of 1 Timothy chapter 3, and I start at verse 1. This is a true saying, if a man desire the office of a bishop, he desire for good work. Right, that's a good thing. A bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife, vigilant, sober, of good behavior, given to hospitality, apt to teach, right? Apt to teach, you know, blameless. You know, your eye should be single to when it comes to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, you know, and you want to be sure of yourself. You know, the scriptures say you should, you got to rightly divide the word of truth. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is study to show yourself approved. You have to study to show yourself approved. All right. Verse 3, not given to wine, no striker, not greedy of filthy lucre, right? Which a lot of them deal with. You know, they be filthy for that lucre. They want donations and cash apps, like the YouTube personalities. But patient, not a brawler, not covetous, one that ruleth well his own house. Right? You got to learn how to rule your own house and rule yourself before you govern someone else and be a overseer of someone else's spirit, you know, soul. You know, that's a high ranking office. You know, that's a high responsibility in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai's temple. All right. So everybody is not apt to be a leader and to instruct men in camps, you know. And you seeing that now today, to where some of these camps are being put on the spotlight when it comes to their doctrine. You know, they going off. Verse 4 again, one that ruleth well his own house, having his children in subjection with all gravity. Right, because that's a fearful thing, man, to be a overseer and governing in someone's soul, right, in the flesh. Even though Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai does it, all right, you have spiritual fathers and spiritual parents that do it as well. Again, those who got to the water first. Verse 5, for if a man know not how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the church of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, right? You know, that's why it's like you can't be an unlearned or a novice. Verse 6, not a novice, lest being lifted up with pride, he fall into the condemnation of the devil. You know, and it's not a problem with being a novice. The scriptures speak on desiring the sincere milk of the word. All right. But ultimately, you want to grow thereby. You know, it speaks on that as well. You want to grow thereby. You know, you want to skillfully, you want to be able to add on to the word, man. You know, a wise man speaketh. You want to be able to add on to it spiritually. You know, so you don't want to be a novice, lest being lifted up with pride, he fall into the condemnation of the devil. And that's what you see on the leader of WFI and these other congregations, IUIC, the ISUPKs like Tazariak. All right, they're straining out a net. They don't have anything sufficient for the people to eat, as far as the proper provender for them to eat, to be built up in the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. You know. So he's lifted up. You'll be lifted up with pride, because it's clear what the mark of the beast is. You know, when you go into Revelations 13 and 15. You know, so it's like these camps, they overstand. You know, Jake feel, because even most of the world, when it comes to the oikumeni sense, the actual earth, see it, and they can see that, yeah, that's the mark of the beast. You know, Jake in the fold, that's overstanding or being over righteous and overzealous, and you know, preach law. You know, they don't want to believe that that's prophecy. You know, when it is, it's simple. It's prophecy, and it's speaking greatly, and that's why a majority of the people see it. All right, but Jake, when it comes to these other camps, they you know, they want to go deep when it's not time to go deep, and when it's time to go deep, they don't go deep. You know. It's the book of Acts, chapter 17. And I start at verse 16. Now while Paul waited for them at Athens, his spirit was stirred in him when he saw the city wholly given to idolatry. Right? The city was separate, given to idolatry. Therefore disputed he in the synagogue with the Jews and with the devout persons, and in the market daily with them that met with him. Sort of like how we do today. Then certain philosophers of the Epicureans and of the Stoics encountered him, and some said, what would this babbler say? Others some, he seemeth to be a setter forth of strange gods, because he preacheth unto them Yahweh Shai and the resurrection. And they took him and brought him unto Areopagus, saying, may we know what this new doctrine whereof thou speakest is? For thou bringest certain strange things to our ears. We would know, therefore, what these things mean. For all the Athenians and strangers, which were there, spent their time in nothing else, but either to tell or to hear some new thing. So I guess that's where people go to hear sermons and stuff. Sermons on Mars Hills. Then Paul stood in the midst of Mars Hills and said, ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things ye are too superstitious. I think this is the point here I wanted to get in verse 22, you know, not to be too superstitious. You know, kind of sort of what, like, you know, that's what leads to these Jakes being playing semantics if they're sincere. You know, if they're sincerely in the darkness. You know, because a lot of them just playing and BSing, you know, they're really just being a diversion to the truth. But you got Jake that very well just be sincerely in the darkness. You know, the Lord might wake him up in that 11th hour, right? As we're approaching. Then Paul stood in the midst of Mars Hills and said, ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things ye are too superstitious. Let me get that word superstitious. G1174.
G1174, Dicedaimon. Dicedaimon.
Basically, like you being too religious, and we know religious mean like to restrain, like to hold back. In a bad sense, superstitious. You know, like a person that always thinking like bad luck and stuff like that could happen. You know, and that's kind of equate to like the Israelites who dwell in the flesh, you know, mentally, and not dwell in the spirit. You know, they think it's gonna be of their works and their own works according to the law. You know, and if they you know, they make the people heavy Latin when it comes to the law, thinking that they gotta keep the whole law, and that's making the people heavy Latin, man. You know, Latin with sin. You know, you put a lot of weight and you beat yourself up that way. You know, we have the understanding that we establish the law. We try to keep it to the best of our ability, but we know that Yahweh Shai is the sacrificial lamb, man. You know. So don't be superstitious. You know, don't just going back to the statement I made about how Jake in the fold, when it comes to these wayward camps, they'll overstand a simple topic. And when it comes to a simple topic, they got to go deep, because they got to go one up when it comes to the men of Great Millstone and the various camps that fall up under that umbrella and that light doctrine. All right, it's like a camp banging thing, and they get caught up into the verses and they lose sight of the goal, man, which is salvation in the kingdom. And it's all in the Lord's will to dish off who he wants and who he don't want. You know, but ultimately there's no gray area with the Lord, man. Let your yays be yays and your nays be nays. So don't be too superstitious. This is verse 23. For as I passed by and beheld your devotions, I found an altar with this inscription: to the unknown God, whom therefore ye ignorantly worship, him declare I unto you. Right? They ignorantly worship. But then you got some like the IUIC who really purposely omit the Lord's name. You know, he once taught the name, and the proof is out there. All right. But then you have these these startups, these battery pack Israelites that have a battery in their back, and they decide to do their own thing, and they gotta have the understanding now in these times that they might have to retract, humble down, and come up under the tutelage and the stewardship up under the 100% truth, the true doctrine, man, and get that understanding. All right, but here Paul's saying what to the unknown God, the church of Berea. Paul at Athens. At Berea, at Athens. To the unknown God. When I went up, you look up to the unknown God in the blue letter, it's going to say this: G57. To the forgotten. Right. So you once knew, being the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans.
Strong's G57. Agnostas. Agnostas.
Agnostas. All right. To the unknown God. A certain Cretan came to Athens to stop a plague. He offered a sheep on altars which did not bear the name of any god, but were addressed to the unknown God. At least one of the altars survived to Paul's day. You know, so at least one of the altars survived to Paul's day. That's why Paul had to be woken up, man, to go and be sent out to the Israelites that was scattered abroad, man, the Israelite foreigners. So maybe you want to play it safe. If you don't sincerely know the Lord's name, you pray and ask for him to give, for you to see it. But then you got those who really just playing games. This is Matthew 5:37. But let your communication be yeah, yeah, nay, nay, for whatsoever is more than these cometh evil, right? So let your yeas be yeas and your nays be nays. So there's no gray areas. When somebody was to ask you what is the Motb, you have to give an answer. You really can't say you don't know. You can say you don't know. That's being sincere and being honest. But if you truly believe in, the Heavenly Father and, in the Word, and you sincerely can't see it, you ask the Heavenly Father for that. He'll give it to you. But when you play semantics and you don't know, and you don't give a yes or a no, and you just play semantics, telling everything what it ain't and everything what it may be, that's playing semantics, man. That's a gray area, and the Lord don't deal with gray areas, man. He rather you be hot than cold than to be lukewarm when it come to doctrine, when it come to truth. This 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 15. But sanctify the Lord Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushua in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asks of you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear. So you got to be able to give an answer. And to be able to give an answer, you got to rightly divide the word of truth. But basically, when it comes to the Motb, they're going off, all right, and they're adding and taking away from the word. And this Revelations 22 and verse 18, for I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book. If any man shall add unto these things, Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushua shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. And if any man shall take away from the words of this book of this prophecy, Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushua shall take away his part out of the book of life and out of the holy city and from the things which are written in this book. And that's just pretty much it, man. You don't want to add or take it away from the word, man. The Lord will go take away your part out of the book of life, just being the point. So you can't say the Spirit is saying one thing and the Spirit ain't saying that. That's a damnable hearsay. You don't agree, or you don't agree because GMS stood on it. You denying the truth basically, and denying the truth is denying the Spirit. And you're not calling the men liars, but you ultimately calling the Lord a liar when you do that. It's Titus chapter 3 and verse 8, and Yahweh says, this lesson was edifying. This is a faithful saying, and these things I will that thou affirm constantly, that they which have believed in Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushua might be careful to maintain good works. Right? Want to be careful to maintain good works. We want to tread lightly when it comes to doctrine. All right, if we get reproved or rebuked, when it comes to going off, we have to evaluate ourselves, correct ourselves, repent. These things are good and profitable unto men, but avoid foolish questions and genealogies and contentions and strivings about the law. Right, that's what they do. That's all they do. Debates. They had the unity camps. They debate. They have contentions with other camps in the conscience community. They debates and stuff like that, and they strivings about the law. For they are unprofitable and vain. A man that is a heretic after the first and second admonition reject, right? And they've been on the rebuke side several times, and they fail to get it right. And they still filled with pride, knowing that he that is such a subverted and sinneth, being condemned of himself. Man, they go be condemned of themselves. When we go to that heretic, all right, go into that term heretic, It goes into G141.
Strong's G141. Heretikas. Heretikas.
Heretikas, which where you would get heresy, what the pride from, if they're able to take or choose a thing. A follower of a false doctrine, that definition number 2. A follower of a false doctrine, man. So a damnable hearsay will come from a heretic, all right, a follower of a false doctrine. So that's ultimately what you would get a damnable hearsay from. Those who don't have the 100% truth, those who follow in a false doctrine. This is 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 1. But there were false prophets also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privily shall bring in damnable heresies, even denying the Lord that brought them, and bring upon themselves swift destruction. And many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of, right? The whole, they rapists and all that. And through covetous shall they with fringe words, right? Where your fringe is at, They had the fringe t-shirts. And through covetous shall they with fringe words make merchandise of you, right? They have that gift of gab. They speak well. They come with that presentation about them to where they're believable. But inside, they're not right, all right? The outside of the cup is clean, but the inside is not clean. Whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not, but the damnation slumbereth not, So that's just the point, There's false prophets with damnable hearsays because they're heretic, all right? They're a follower of false doctrines, all right? So don't let nobody tell you that the Motb is not the RFID CHIP. They're a liar. So Shalom, Habatah, DTA. Till the next one.